march to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. And life sucks all of the time, stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everybody. Welcome back to all of our current listeners, and welcome to any new listeners. We love having you, and a special thanks to Henno for filling in for me when I was out last week. So I really appreciate it, and gosh darn you, getting better ratings than I do. Let me tell you what. It's a clean show, so I can't say anything harder than that.
Right.
But
well, not on mic anyway.
exactly, not on mic.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised if you start getting some packages in the mail that start ticking.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be replaced. Anywho,
they'll just be timekeepers. I can't think of what they're called. You know, for music, the things that tick back and
metronome.
forth. Metronome. Thank you. Jeez, I don't know why I couldn't think of that.
I'm going to send him a bunch of metronomes for his music. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, of course. I love Henno, of course.
Right.
He's a wonderful guy, and I appreciate him stepping in and helping us out. So, anywho, I'm Jen, of course. I'm the hostess of the mostest for the evening, and my co-host, of course, is Bryan. Hey, Bryan.
Heidi.
So, how's your week been?
This weather's just brutalizing my sinuses.
Oh.
Other than that, not too bad. But, you know, the last few days have been just horrible with the humidity and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't live in the wonderful state of Michigan, we are having extremely high temperatures and extremely wet. So lots of rain, lots of humidity, and lots of sun.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful and wonderful. But
Yeah, it just can't seem to make up its mind, though. It's like at one point, I was at my storage facility today, and it had just quit raining, and the wind was picking up a little bit. You know, the humidity was down just a bit. The temp had dropped. I was like, this isn't too bad. And then all of a sudden, it just, here it came. You know, it's like someone was like, oh, it's cool. You know, turn the heat right back up, and just everything came back in. The wind died down. I was like, just, walking from the car to the house, and you're just like pouring sweat, It's like,
exactly. Same thing happened today. I was outside. I'm actually in the process of learning how to ride a motorcycle. So I was outside for 5 hours today, and it rained for a good 5 minutes when we were on the bikes, and it was so nice. Just the cold rain and a cool breeze blew through, and we all were just, felt so good. And then it got hot again.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Better than snow.
Yeah.
I will never complain because it's better than the snow, but still.
Yeah, my issue is just like with my sinuses is just like when it won't even out.
Right.
I can't, I can't find any relief from it.
Right.
So, it looks like we're, it's supposed to kind of even back out over the next few days here. So hopefully.
Well, that's good. Yeah, we're stealing Weathercast away from Neil and Annalise.
Yeah. Well, in Temperance, it's lovely. Yeah. Sorry, they're on vacation right now. They've got no worries.
Good for them.
Yeah.
And for those listening who don't know, Neil and Annalise are part of another podcast. I'm gonna murder their name. What is their name?
It's Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Daft Pod.
Yeah, DAPF, Daft Pod. Yeah. That's how after I first started listening to them, I decided at that point I would never refer to them as anything but Daft Pod again. So,
But two wonderful, wonderful people, and
enjoying some Jamaica right now. I said they're enjoying some Jamaica right now.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yep.
So, well, my week's been interesting, and I've been I don't know if the listeners, if you guys have noticed by following me on the podcast, it's been getting increasingly harder for me to kind of control some emotions at work, and that came to a head last week. And I had an emotional outburst and pretty much lost my shit, which sucks.
I'm just picturing in my head, as soon as you said you were having trouble controlling your emotions, I'm just picturing you just, slapping the taste out of someone's mouth or something.
I wish.
Yeah. How dare you?
I wish I had if that's where my emotions go to.
Yeah.
But no, of course not.
No.
It always equates to tears.
Right.
And crying at work is like crying in baseball. You can't do it.
Yeah.
There is no crying. So, I mean, thankfully it was handled in a fairly private manner, which is good. Not necessarily how it's always gone for me.
Right.
So
True.
at least I lost my stuff in a pseudo quiet area.
Right.
Did end up having a couple conversations, one with my leader and one with my supervisor, which is always a good time. And I had to, reassure them that, it was an isolated incident and it was just a buildup of a bunch of different stressors and stuff.
And that you don't normally throw coffee pots. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'll replace the windows that I blew out.
Right.
The usual. But no, I kid. So, it just hurt. It sucks. Anyone who goes through stuff like that, it sucks.
Yeah. Because
then, people don't understand, and you can't expect them to, because it's irrational. It's not normal behavior.
Now, out of curiosity, like, was that just a work thing, or is this like were you kind of finding it difficult to control your emotions kind of in general, and then the work thing just topped it off? Like, do you, I guess, let me rephrase. Do you think this has anything to do with, like, a swing, like, with being bipolar? Or do you think it's more that it's just whatever?
Right. I honestly, I think it was a bipolar swing, and I felt it coming. I could tell I was in it. Yeah. But I couldn't bring myself out of it. And it kept building and building and building, and then it finally burst. And once I have the emotional release of it, then it's like all of a sudden I get the moment of clarity, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, and that's exactly what happened. I had the emotional release, went home, had the moment of clarity, and went back the next day, had a meeting with my leader, and, she's incredibly impressed by my miraculous change of heart and in attitude and all this great stuff. Right. She's like, it just boggles my mind that you can just, turn it on and turn it off. And I'm like, well, talented that way. Yeah.
It's like, trust me, it's really nothing to idolize.
It just kind of sucks.
Like, I'd really rather not go through this, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And it comes with the territory, and as good as I get at controlling things, sometimes by controlling it too much, then it builds up, and then I have to have an explosion, and there's usually casualties, me being one of them.
Yeah, that's the thing, is generally you are the casualty.
Exactly.
Like, really, and I don't necessarily just mean you. I just mean, like, me, if I bottle something up, when I finally explode, usually you end up making yourself the jerk in that scenario, and you really become the casualty in the whole thing. Yeah. It's a, ticking time bomb. Yep.
So, but thankfully this one was managed fairly well, and so I kind of I walked through that minefield, and I did fairly well with it. It was very interesting kind of going through it again, and it's been a while since I've had one of those. it seems to happen like once every 6 months or so. I'll have an explosion, and then it goes back to fairly normal, which is good. I still have little residuals, like I'm a little extra sensitive, so I have to be careful because, I live with my boyfriend who's very sarcastic, and he has kind of an acid tongue at times.
Yeah.
And for the most time, I just laugh it off because it's 99% of the time it's funny. He makes me laugh.
Right.
But occasionally, if it's not delivered in quite the right manner, or if I'm feeling extra sensitive, all of a sudden something that was lighthearted and funny becomes, me crying.
Right. Yeah.
So, So he's this is the first time he's really seen that. And so it's kind of confused him. So I've kind of had to talk him through it. And it's like, you know what? It just falls under the title of living with mental illness. It sucks.
It is, yeah.
It's just, this is the downside of it and stuff. And especially when, your Aunt Flo is visiting, as I like to say, or surfing the crimson wave, shall we say. So you're in a state of increased emotion anyways because of all that. And on top of it, the emotional ups and downs of, anxiety and depression and bipolar and all that good, wonderful stuff. It becomes very difficult to keep all the hats in the air, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
it is what it is. And I have to forgive myself.
Yep.
And I have to look to the future and not live in that moment and just say, you know what? It happened. I tried to minimize the damage the best I could. And all I can do is, like any good superhero, flap my cape and walk away from the collateral damage.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. You don't see in the comic book, you never see Superman looking back at the city half destroyed.
Nope.
I've saved the day, up and away, and it's on to the next adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody else will clean all this up. I don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. So, it is what it is. But, I'm doing good. I mean, I managed through it, and
well, at least it doesn't take you a long time to find the moment of clarity and such. At least you found it quickly and were able to go in the next day. And working in any sort of an environment, business like that,
yes,
what has to be done, to make everything sunshine and lollipops again, so it's,
And I've been very lucky. I've inherited my dad's silver tongue.
Yeah.
So, especially when it comes to the business world, that I can pretty much spin things in my direction.
Yeah.
If I apply a little knowledge to it and some couple fancy words, key company words and whatnots in it. And,
exactly. Yeah.
I can usually spin it so it sounds, just the right combination of contrite and sorry and positive, optimistic for the future and changes and stuff.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because otherwise, you can't just detonate and, just leave people in your wake and then just keep moving forward, because you do have to look backwards and,
Yeah, clean up the mess a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You're not going to fix everything, but you can,
right.
tidy it up a touch.
Yeah.
And it's tempting. And I'll tell you, more than once when I've detonated like that, the next day, not even the next day, the same day, you know how tempting it is to call off, to, quit, to just, walk away.
Right.
It's like, yep, I detonated again. Time to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'd be so easy just to kind of just walk away, but you can't.
Yeah, you're standing there looking at the bridge on fire, smoking the cigarette, and going, "Huh." Like, I should probably try to put that out.
Shit, that's my way home.
Yeah. Like, oh man, I didn't. Yeah.
It is what it is, and I can't beat myself up over it.
Right.
You know, before the medicine, I would absolutely berate myself and make myself miserable and sick because, I failed. I couldn't control it, and it just got the best of me. And, and you go through the shame spirals and the guilt and depression based upon, that you messed up, and it's, thankfully, the medicine helps with a lot of that it stops my brain from going down those paths.
Yeah.
It helps me to recognize my limitations and accept myself for who I am.
Right.
I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. And you know what? I make mistakes. And if somebody can't accept that I made the mistake, or if the mistake was big enough to cause enough issue that they need to fire me, that's okay too. I'll figure it out. They need to do what's best for them, and I need to do what's best for me.
Right, exactly.
And no hard feelings, no harm, no foul.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you can't, like you said, you can't sit and obsess on that, because it's, you've still got to, you're going to be who you are in this, but right, wrong, and different on it. It's, you have to, you just have to push forward,
Yeah. And that's, and the other big thing, is don't make any decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that time period.
That's a good point.
I mean, I'm at least, aware enough to know that I'm not in the best place to make any decisions.
Yeah.
So, such as quitting or,
right.
Or calling into work too much or whatever.
Generally, you should avoid that. That's just a good tip generally anyway in life, is to not make those decisions while you're emotional. An example would be like you'll see a football player or something at the end of a season and they'll be like, I don't know if I can come back. And they'll make it sound like they're retiring, and it's, but then you get a few months away from the season, they feel better, and everything's like, well, maybe it's like, okay, maybe I'll come back for another year, So.
Exactly, and same thing goes for relationships.
Yeah.
Do not, it's very tempting, but do not break up with someone when you're in an emotional state.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, though. I mean, that's probably when most
things happen.
Or a good chunk of them. I mean, maybe not, a lot of, I guess it probably depends, because, stuff with, like, divorces and stuff, that's probably more of just a long-term, thing with most people, But
that's the thing. I mean, don't make those decisions when in the heat of emotion, I should say. They're very emotional decisions, but don't do it in the heat of emotion.
Right.
So, like, when you're actively fighting with someone, that is not the time to break up with them.
Yeah.
That is the time to get away from the situation, think about the situation, and if it's bad enough, absolutely break up with them.
Yeah.
But don't do it at that moment. Give yourself that space, that deep breath, to look back and reflect on it and say, okay, is, him not saying he likes my outfit really enough to break this, to put the last straw on that camel's back to make you want to break up with them?
Right. And the answer is always yes. Yeah. No.
Yes. Always yes. And it could be. I mean, I'm not,
it might be. Sure.
Not judging.
For some people, depending on, because maybe it is. Maybe it's not that someone didn't say it today. It might just be that they just never do, or they haven't in a long time, or
Yeah.
So
it could be a sign of something bigger. Hey, that's up to you to make that decision.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Don't do it. In the middle of the fight.
Right. Try to have a as level of a head as possible, unless you're talking like extreme circumstances or something, like, they murdered someone.
Yeah.
You're like, I think we're done. Be like, no, you're just being emotional. Be like, no, I'm pretty sure you're. I might be, but I'm sure we're done.
Yeah. It's just not a good call.
Right.
But, definitely, don't make any big decisions or rash decisions and stuff. And recognize the fact that your brain is not processing the full picture.
Yeah.
you know, in the heat of emotion, you're feeling one way, but your feelings could be it's not that they're not valid, because I truly believe feelings are feelings. They are what they are.
Yeah.
But perception can definitely dictate feelings and can cloud them and make them more than they are. So you have to use reason and thoughts as well. So it's finding the balance between the two.
Yeah.
Which is very difficult, and that kind of brings us to kind of the topic we're talking about today.
Right, because the two just do not play nicely together. It's why, you know, I've read different stuff about that. That's, you know, a big reason why a lot of men and women fight is because, you know, of how they approach a situation, and that, you know, guys are taught to remove your emotion because we're not allowed to show emotions because manly men and such, you know,
right.
And women are always just emotional basket cases because, you know, that's all you can do when you're not in the kitchen and making babies, I guess, according to...
And barefoot. Keep in mind, barefoot.
I'm just throwing out a bunch of horrible stereotypes, but the truth is a lot of guys do. They're more like, this doesn't make sense, and a lot of women are like, it doesn't have to because it's how I feel. Why can't you, you know, why don't you feel this way? And the guy will be like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. And then, yeah. So it's, you know...
Yeah.
A lot of fights are in that vein, so, you know.
Exactly. One of my favorite sayings is, you don't have to understand, you just have to accept.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to understand why I feel the way I do. You have to accept that this is how I feel.
And without getting any further into it, this is very similar in a lot of ways as to the whole religion and science situation.
Yes, it is.
Why a lot of people have issues back and forth, because one is a feeling, a faith, or whatever, and the other is, well, here's logic and proof. So they don't play sometimes nice together, and it's the same thing, like you said. It's like, you just have to accept it. Well, that's my problem, and then the fight breaks out.
Yeah, exactly. I can't accept.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that doesn't even necessarily have to be between two people. I mean, I've had that kind of conflict in my own head, where it's like, I can't settle this because I know logically I'm overreacting, but, you know, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And emotions are very interesting because emotions are not logical. They never will be. And emotions are very factual because this is how I'm feeling. Just like pain or happiness, sadness, you know, those are all emotions. And they doesn't make them any less real. Right.
They just can't be measured the way something like numbers can be.
Yeah. I mean, I think pain is a perfect example because everybody's been to the doctor's office and you see the little sign that says little, you know, smiley faces, you know, and what's your pain level, 1 to 10.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, you're taking something that's subjective and trying to put something logical next to it, and it can't work.
You know, it's funny, like, the last few times, like when I had kidney stones and I went in, they're like, what level is your pain? And they're like 1 to 10, and I'm like 40, you know?
Right.
And nobody, like, normally they kind of, well, that seems, like, they were like, right, so it's pretty high, you know? Like, that was the only time I think, like, when I hurt my knee and I went in, they're like, how bad is the pain? And I was like, it's probably a 7, 8, and they were like, it's not. And they're like, let us tell you why. And then they explained a little more, like, to get that high on the level, it's got to be like you need painkillers constantly, almost kind of thing. But for kidney stones, it really is that bad. You know, it's a high level of pain generally. Mm-hmm. So that's why I said it was funny to me how, like you said, though, but arbitrarily, like I said, when they're like, well, how much pain? 40, you know?
Yeah, it's like, I can't tell you because, 10 for one person is, a 2 for another.
Yeah.
It all depends. Like, my uncle has an amazing tolerance for pain.
Yeah.
And he's a diabetic, and he has lost both of his legs to diabetes. And unfortunately, one of the times he had to have his leg amputated, he went to the hospital, of course, and they performed the surgery, and they gave him pain medicines during surgery, like normal, that's what happens. And they bandaged him up. They put him in his bed and good stuff. Got a morphine drip going for him to help him out. And so everything was nice and copacetic and good and all that good jazz. Well, as the night progressed, he started feeling more and more pain. So, he has a little handy button. You hit the button, you get a dose of morphine, everything's good.
Right.
Not so much. So he hit the button and no relief came. He's like, all right, well, maybe it's just some real kicking pain. I
Right.
did have a limb removed.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's something you're probably not going to know until you have one removed,
Yeah, what's the normal pain, pain level for this? It sucks. So, he hit the button and nothing happened. So, he told the nurse checked it and she's like, oh, everything looks good. He's okay. So, he's just dealing with it and dealing with it and dealing with it. Well, the nurse changed, nurse shifts changed and stuff. Another nurse came in and he called them and he's like, I'm sorry, but I am in excruciating pain. I am in a ton of pain. And she's like, really? And she's like, well, let me check. And so she went and checked. She's like, why is your mattress wet? Why is it? Oh my God. And he's like, what? And he's like, the morphine drip. She's like, it's not been going into your vein. It's been going into your mattress.
Yeah.
So all the medicine that he's been trying to get into his system was leaking from the tube into the mattress instead of going into his body. So it had been 24 hours since he had had any pain medicine from having his leg amputated.
Right.
Yeah, and so, she's like, oh my God. So, the bed's high as a kite.
Right.
The bed could, fly mountains.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that is 10.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure nobody would argue with him if he was like, yeah, this is a 10. They'd be like, hey, are you sure? It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, pretty sure.
And so, of course, they get him morphine immediately, and they get him, set up, and so he has his pain meds, and so he's feeling great. And, he's feeling so much better and stuff. And so the nurse comes in to change his bandages, his dressing. And she goes to change his dressing. She's like, oh, man. He's like, what? And he's like, have you been in a lot of pain? He's like, well, yeah. But she's like, your bandages are way too tight. And he's like, really? She's like, oh, my God, yeah. She's like, I'm going to make you feel so much more comfortable. So she, redid his dressing and made it looser, the appropriate tightness. And he had morphines going. So by the time my dad and I went and visited him in the hospital, he was so happy.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
he was just grinning, and oh man, he was in some great places. But and it dawned on me, I'm like, my goodness, there has got to be one hell of a threshold of pain.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to be. I mean, I would be sobbing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably be violent and throwing things. Like someone needs to deal with this. Like I said, I mean, just the kidney stones I had. I mean, I when I got to the hospital, they're like, "Oh, we need to fill out some forms," and I'm standing there, and I'm just in my head, I'm like, "Can't you give me a painkiller and then we fill out some forms?" Like,
yeah,
like I'm in horrible pain here, and you can't, but they have to have you coherent as possible until Because once they start giving you drugs, they're pretty, fairly strong, and they don't know what's going to happen. So.
Exactly. So
yeah,
but we kind of digress. But along those lines of the pain threshold and stuff like that, it's the same thing when you're dealing with emotions. Someone's intent is not necessarily how it's received. So when someone says something, let's just take, I don't even know what. For an example, let's say, all right, you and your significant other are getting ready to go out. And they, look at you and they're like, wow, you look really pretty today. So on the surface, that's a beautiful compliment. It's like, well, thank you. I put obviously extra effort into it. I look wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. And good. Somebody else could hear the same comment and say, today.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Do you saying that I'm not pretty every day, or I
Right.
don't look good every day?
Right. Yeah. You didn't say that to me yesterday or the day before. Or
Yeah, exactly. What are you saying? You expect me to go through all this effort every single day to look beautiful? You can easily see how this can escalate out of control.
Yeah.
And something as innocuous and simple as you look pretty today can turn into a full-fledged fight, and nobody goes out, nobody gets laid, and everybody goes to bed by themselves.
Right.
And is there something inherently wrong with saying you look pretty today? No. The intent was good. The intent was a positive. The perception of the other person, though, and how they received the message is completely different. And you can't control how someone perceives your message. What you can control is how you react to the message. And same thing on both parties. If you have a question, like someone, says something to you and you question it and you're like, that didn't sit right, or it's it's giving me this emotion, and you ask for clarity, try to understand their intent and what they were thinking and stuff like that. But you have to own the emotion, name it, and then once it's identified, you're like, wow, that made me feel bad. Why did it make me feel bad? Well, here's why it made me feel bad. What was the intent behind it? Okay, the intent behind it was good. So you kind of have to mitigate how and say, okay, I felt bad. Now I compartmentalized it, and I addressed it, identified it, and then I can put it away.
Yeah.
If you don't go through those steps, what's going to happen is that's going to brew. So even if you don't act upon it immediately, those feelings will still be there until you identify them, compartmentalize them, analyze them, and move on. Go through those steps, it's still going to be there. You're going to be thinking about it all night long when you're trying to go to bed, the next morning, and it's going to brew. And the next time that person says something to you, it's going to color how you perceive what they've said the second time.
Right.
And it's going to color everything thereafter until you go through those steps.
Right. So it's no different than if somebody new comes into your job or your work, and somebody else goes up to you and goes, oh, hey, I heard that they're this, and this. A lot of people kind of then when you talk to them, you're prejudging almost, kind of, you kind of fall into that same pit that you're, it's like everything they say, you're looking for a double meaning, or you're looking for hidden meanings and stuff. You're reading between lines, even though there's nothing to read sometimes. And and it's easy enough to do because, dealing with depression, you have, so much doubt in your head about a lot of stuff that you always you go to a party and you see people and you assume that they're talking about you almost, that they're making fun of you, that they're judging you and all that. And, that can lead to, making bad decisions. I did that actually years ago. I assumed that there were some people that were at a party I was at, and they kept looking at me and they kept laughing, and I got really mad at the person whose party it was, and I went off on them because I was like, why would you bring me here just for them to make fun of me, basically? And it turns out that they weren't really making fun of me. That was how I perceived it, and it's how it felt, and basically all I did was make a big jerk out of myself at the time. I was a little justified because there was one of them that was, but most of them were not. They were talking about something else. So,
Yeah.
But
it's tough. It's tough to know, and it's, when do you react? When don't you?
Yeah.
It's like, when is what you perceive justified and correct, and when isn't it?
Yeah.
We've all made those mistakes, and we continue making those mistakes because it's unfortunately it's part of the communication cycle.
Yeah.
Verbal, the verbal, written, and wait a minute, verbal, written, and gestures. It's unspoken.
Right.
Thank you. So, text messages, another huge one, because you can't, you eliminate so many other clues as to the intent behind things.
Yeah, you're right. You can't read intent in text form. Like it's you are completely assuming intent, And most of the time you can kind of pick up on it because of the way the conversation's been going, but it doesn't take much for a conversation to go from being casual and fine to all of a sudden it's, well, what do you mean by that? It's like, no, or someone to take something wrong. Yeah.
And what do you do in those circumstances? Being on the opposite end of things, what do you do when you say something and the other person takes offense to it?
Yeah.
Not what you're intended.
Right.
How do you handle that? Because it's easy there's two ways, you can either get angry because it's like, well, you're getting mad at me for no reason. That's not what I meant by that, which is fair.
Yeah. Because,
you're getting hammered for something you feel that you didn't do.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, you can go the opposite direction and apologize, but then you can still feel uncomfortable with that because why am I apologizing? I did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So, it's
which generally is, like I always had that issue with people, because, like when you see people and they tell their kids, it's like apologize. It's like, no, don't just tell them to apologize. Like they need to know why to apologize at this point. And it's like, like I've said plenty of stuff in my life that people have not agreed with, that's hurt them, they haven't liked, whatever. And at different times, I'm not going to apologize for what I said. I'm sorry it hurt you. Like that wasn't my intention, wasn't to hurt you. But I'm not going to, much like you see a lot of comedians going through. They don't mean to offend people generally with their jokes. They don't mean to offend this person or bring up bad feelings or a bad scenario. They're just telling jokes. And a lot of people get upset and, oh, you should have to apologize. It's like, no, I'm not going to apologize because I shouldn't have to. Like, I'm sorry you felt bad, or that it made you feel that way. That I'm sorry for because that was never my intent. But, in a room of 50, 49 people laughed. You're the only one who didn't. Why should I issue a blanket apology when, like I said, I'm sorry you were hurt by it.
And I truly believe I'm a very firm believer in freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And especially in a public forum. I believe in freedom of speech. I don't agree with a lot of things people say. But I agree with their right to say them.
Yeah.
And I also feel that in situations such as that, it's absolutely 100% appropriate to apologize for them misunderstanding you. I think the key to handling it is identify your true intent. Yeah. Say, apologize for maybe saying it in the way, in a bad way. It's like I apologize that that's worded badly.
Yeah.
That you didn't get the message that I intended for you to get. And, those are very appropriate responses. You don't necessarily have to apologize for the statement that you made because, you know what? It could be 100% true.
Yeah.
And it's just on the flip side, though, so whichever side of the coin you're on, you have to acknowledge the fact that the emotions are there, but also use logic and reason to move past it.
Yeah.
You know, I had excuse me. I had a situation with a friend, a good friend of mine, where just in conversation, we were just talking or whatever in a big group, and I said something that really offended her. And I had no idea. But instantly she shut off. And I could tell that I had upset her.
Mm-hmm.
Or that something had upset her. And I couldn't tell if it was something that I had said, because I didn't think I said anything wrong. But she just shut down for the rest of the evening. And I'm like, okay. So I asked a few other people, I'm like, do you know, did I do something? Or did I say something? Or just, is she upset about something? And no one could tell me what's going on. I'm like, okay. In situations such as that, my take on it is, you know what? We're all adults. And if she has a problem with me, it is her responsibility to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because if I ask and someone tells me it's fine, I'm going to take them at their word.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing else to go on.
Yeah.
And when she finally did bring it to me, I addressed it in that manner. I told her, I apologize for offending you, because that is absolutely not my intent. And honestly, I'm a little hurt that you would think I would even say something that would hurt you like that.
Right.
I would hope that we were friends long enough that you would have given me the benefit of the doubt that it came out wrong, or you misunderstood, or, to at least ask me.
Right.
Not just get upset. I said, but regardless of the fact, ultimately, I am sorry that you felt bad, because that's not what I meant by it and stuff. And, but, I appreciate you bringing it to me, so that we can work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because just as easily she could have chosen to just completely either internalize it and just carry that chip towards you, or just completely, or she could go the other way and just shut you down and just be like, that's it, I'm done with you. Like, I can't believe you'd say that, and people do those things all the time. And, sometimes when you hear people, oh, well, they said this about me, so I'm blah, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. We all say dumb stuff, like we all say really dumb things, especially when emotion is involved. It's
exactly.
You have to be careful. Couples fighting. It's to be ever so careful to not say something, because you can't take it back. That doesn't exist. And me, I do not buy in that taking something back thing. It's like, once you said it, you said it. That's all you can do is live in it. It's already out there at that point. But
you can explain it. You can, give more details so that people understand it better.
Right.
But it's still
it goes back to the example, and this is one of my favorite things, is explaining why someone will say, well, what's wrong? And you're like, I'm hurt. And they go, well, I apologized. And you go, yeah, but it still hurts. And then the analogy that I've seen more recently that I love is you take a dish and throw it on the floor and say, now apologize to it. Is the dish put back together? No, it's still broken. It's like, it's the same idea. Just because you apologize doesn't mean that the hurt goes away immediately. It's not, it'd be great if it did. Like, if you were really sorry and you apologized, it'd be amazing if somehow, the pain went away from that kind of thing. But that isn't how we work, and
No, and it's not, and you're right. I mean, there's two sides to that, though. That it's like, playing a game of hot potato or basketball, as people say. When the ball gets passed into your court, it's up to you to decide what to do with it. You toss the ball to someone and say, hey, you offended me. Their responsibility is to either take the ball and go home, or toss the ball back to you and say, I'm sorry I offended you.
Yeah.
Then it is back in your court to decide, do you accept the apology?
Yeah.
Or do you not?
Right.
And so...
Which is a funny thing in itself, because generally, anytime someone apologizes, what's the first thing that you measure when they apologize? you measure like intent, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You measure
Yeah.
how much you
How
think.
sincere. And,
Yeah. It's just like somebody on trial when
Mm-hmm.
when they appeal to the court, and it's like, well, they didn't seem very. I can't think of the right word for it now. Remorseful. That's the word I'm looking for. They don't seem very remorseful, and it's like, how do you measure that? 'Cause-
Right. And that's what it comes down to. Is like it's your personal choice.
Yeah.
Everybody has those choices, but especially when you're dealing with mental illness, all of these things are typical, normal, everyday things that everybody goes through.
Right.
But when you're dealing with mental illness, it adds yet another layer to that because you're predisposed to misinterpreting things.
Yeah, you're predisposed to me against the world mentality in a lot of ways. Like with what I go through, to where I initially, if someone says something and it offends me, I immediately want to, and I've done this in the past, for better or worse, just boom, and I'm done. And I'll shut people out of my life. Like that's it. No more, no second chance. Because it's like, no, I think you were deliberately trying to really come after me, and it's like, I'm not going to give you that power. I'm not going to allow that. So boom, I shut it down and move on. And that's, like I said, good or bad. That's what my head tells me to do.
Yeah, and my head tells me to obsess about what I did wrong.
Yeah.
And my head spins everything to me.
Right.
So regardless of what someone says, someone could say, you know what, your outfit is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. My head will hear that, interpret it, instead of me lashing back at someone for saying something like that to me.
Yeah, like, how dare you? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How rude. How dare you say something that blatantly rude and disrespectful. No, my brain filters it and it's like, you know what? She's right. This is the ugliest outfit. I really shouldn't have worn this outfit. That was really stupid of me not to,
Right.
to not to ask somebody ahead of time. And you know what? I should probably thank them for letting me know.
Yeah. It's almost like you show up and they're kind of like, oh, that's what you're going to wear, huh? Like, it's, like that mentality. And it's just like, why? What's wrong with local? I'll go change. It's like, yeah.
Exactly. And then it's, so it's
like, no, they're the jerk because they're passive aggressive. But anyway, that's a different story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
And we'll go over that one too. So it's understanding that, like, you know what? No. You stop yourself, you stop and you think about it, and it's like, all right, they said this, it's making me feel this way.
Yep.
Now that I've addressed the emotion, it's got a name, now what am I going to do with it?
Yeah, I've read too, and I know you and I have talked about this before, in that sometimes, like, if you have an issue like with obsession or something, is to kind of give yourself a set amount of time, and then find what you can to distract yourself. Like, okay, I know work frustrates me. I'm going to give myself an hour or half an hour to kind of wallow in it. I'm gonna just get down about it. I'm gonna rethink it. But then after that, I'm gonna watch Netflix, or I'm gonna play a video game or something. You start trying to find some way to distract yourself or something so that your mind gets away from it.
Yeah, because sometimes the appropriate thing is to walk away.
Right.
Sometimes the appropriate thing is to stand up for yourself and fight back. And sometimes the most appropriate thing to do is find the common ground between the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Some
people deserve to be shut out of your life.
Yes.
It just plain and simple.
Yeah.
Some people lose privileges and deserve to be shut down. Some people are worth saving.
Yeah.
And I think, again, these are all personal decisions that you have to make. But just find that balance, is emotional as it gets. And it gets really emotional when you're dealing with a lot of mental illness.
Yeah.
It gets really emotional, and it gets really thick emotion.
Right.
So that you can't perceive things the same way. You can't, You just get lost in it.
Well, even if you're in a position where you're kind of doing better and you're moving yourself in the right direction, let's say. I kind of don't even want to word it that way, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to make there seem like there's a right and a wrong, because everybody's got their own path with this stuff. But say you're moving toward a good place. Like, everything's, you know what I mean? You still sometimes, you still, you have to behave in those ways that it's like, this is just what's best for me right now, you know, like down the road it might be a little different, but you know, it's similar to like we talked, like back when we talked about dating and we were kind of talking about the mental illness and dating. It's kind of like, look, right now I'm trying to take care of me, or we talked when Henno was on with you and I that, you know, I'm trying to take care of me so that I can be serviceable to other people, or so that I can be in a healthy relationship, because right now it's going to be tough because I've got a lot of things that I'm still dealing with that, like I've said before, it's like I'm going to make selfish decisions because I kind of have to, because it's what keeps me where I need to be, you know, or whatever. And so, you know, there's that element to it too. It's like not even just when you're deep down in a depression, but also when you're emerging, or if you're doing well. And sometimes you have to go, I can't, you know, or a recovering alcoholic or what have you. You know, it's like, I can't make that decision because I'm headed this way. Like, I have to stay on this path for now. And, you know.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah, finding
tricky.
balance, no matter, even if you don't deal with any mental illness or anything, life is incredibly hard to find balance in, you know, because,
oh, absolutely.
You know, look how many people with kids, and they're trying to find that balance between keeping their identities and their life and being mom and dad or whatever, you know, it's, you know.
And it's you know, it's tough. You know, I just went through an entire weekend. My boyfriend and I work opposite shifts, so we don't see a ton of each other. So we just went through a 3-day weekend where it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful, you know, and I had the most amazing time, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But I was still in my highly emotional state.
Yeah.
So things that he would say were getting perceived by me incorrectly. Yeah. Which caused me to be extra emotional.
Which kind of goes back to what Henno made that comment, where you're changing the rules a little bit because you know you're in a heightened set. So if you can identify that and tell somebody, you can say, hey, look, the rules have changed, even if it's just for a weekend or a month or something.
Right.
Like, hey, the rules have changed right now. I'm just warning you. I'm really, like, I'm cranky or whatever, however you want to word it, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
And and he's never seen that before, and so he didn't know how to react. So his reaction was to instead of, backing down, his reaction was to pick even stronger, which is never a good choice.
Right.
But he was raised with 4 boys, and, he deals with stuff like guys deal with stuff, and he doesn't get emotional, girly stuff. So, it's after the fact we were able to sit back and kind of talk about it more and just say, you know what, even though we had a great time, we had these moments, and here's why.
Yeah.
And so that we can kind of both look at it and kind of learn from it and learn how to increase our communication better. So it takes time, it takes effort, it takes so much of communication. And we have to make sure when it comes to communicating around emotions that we are honest with ourselves, honest with the people we're communicating with, but also logical about them. Feelings aren't logical, but we can take logic and apply logic to feelings.
Yeah.
And we can't control emotion. We can control our reactions.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, and like after the fact, like Greg, going back to what you said, at work, you blow up a little bit or you detonate or whatever. if you need to apologize, you apologize to smooth things back over. You know, you went through and you were like, hey, you know what? I understand. I behaved this way. Let me attempt to make amends to, you know, for that. And that's where you're trying to apply the logic. Like, listen, I know this isn't, I can't do this, but the fact is I did. And now I'd like to, you know, like, let's try to correct this going forward. I can't undo that, but I want to do what I can to make it better going forward.
Exactly. You know, and that's a perfect example right there. I identified the emotion. I dealt with it, not in the best way, but, you know, I detonated.
But
I should have dealt with it better, but I didn't. I had emotions. I didn't deal with them correctly. They blew up. I identified what happened. I thought about the actions I was going to take based upon what happened, and I did the best I could, straighten things out, and then I'm letting it go.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to work through those steps.
Yep.
It's tough, but if you go through the steps and you process it, you're going to be better for it, and it's going to get easier. That's the thing. Handling emotions and stuff gets easier the more you understand the steps it takes to process them, analyze them, and move past them.
Yeah, you know, it stinks because I know a lot of people don't have to take these steps in their life. They don't have to walk through and analyze each of their steps and go, okay, did I this, did I that? Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who do. But I find that it seems to work better for me when I'm trying to figure out if I've overreacted to a situation or kind of like how should I react to that situation. It's almost like, you know, like I need to walk through this before I just go and do it because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to choose the wrong things. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, emotion gets involved and sometimes you just, and, you know, that's just, you know, whatever happened at that point, then it's like, well, you know.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, things happen.
Yeah, the milk's already spilled at this point. It's like, well.
Yep.
So.
You do the best you can to clean it up, you forgive yourself, and you move past it.
Yep.
And it's, you know, you have to put one foot in front of the other, and you just keep moving.
Yep.
Because that's all you can do. And look up and smile and know that you've done the best you can, even when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, you've done the best you can.
I think that kind of brings us to, you know, how we do like a win for the week or what have you kind of a thing. And I think that's kind of why we find those things so important. Is that you understand, it's like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, in life, it's like, I've busted my butt at the gym, I'm doing this, I'm eating right, I'm doing all this, it's like, boy, I just want a little piece of chocolate, you know, kind of a thing, and it's like, just let yourself have the chocolate once in a while, you know, it's like, so you gotta grab those little wins sometimes and just enjoy that piece of chocolate, you know, it's like, you've been doing everything else, you know, the way you're supposed to, or whatever, it's like, sometimes it's like, screw it, just, you know, I'm just gonna do this. But kind of going into that because we're, you know, getting close to an hour here. So do you have a win for the week or 2 weeks since, you know, you weren't here last week either way?
I have. Let me think here. Well, yes, a win that I'm claiming is, and I'm taking this win, is this weekend, I've completely stepped outside my comfort zone. I went and I signed up for my motorcycle endorsement for my license. I signed up for classes for that. And I'm doing it by myself, for myself, and everything about it, I'm going to a strange school to do it. A bunch of strange people are there. Nothing about it is comfortable.
Right.
I've never ridden I've ridden on the back of a motorcycle, but I've never driven a motorcycle. I've never driven a clutch four-wheeler. So this is completely uncomfortable in every sense of the word for me.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing it, and I feel good. I'm not stressing about it. I'm not over-analyzing it. I'm not putting unrealistic expectations on myself. I'm just accepting it for what it is. I'm enjoying it for what it is, and I'm not going to let myself get too crazy about it.
Yeah.
So I'm just chill. I'm good with it.
Right.
And I'm enjoying myself, and I'm claiming that as a win because that's something that's difficult for me to do.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. I can see that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What's your win for the week?
Yeah, I was trying to come up with one because this week I can't really think of much because I haven't really had a lot happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really had a lot of, I don't want to get too far into it for various reasons, but like I went for a mental evaluation this past weekend, and I made sure that I asserted myself in it this time because I've gone for them in the past, and I kind of felt like all they were giving me were, as you said, as we talked before, just like all they wanted were yes/no questions or answers. And this, and what the way my life is, it's gray area. It's not black and white. Like there's a lot of questions that yes doesn't answer. It's more like yes but, or no but, like that kind of that answer is better. Like I live more in a maybe world, and I know it infuriates people, but but when I went through it, I made sure that it was like, listen, this is why I'm going through this. This is what I'm dealing with. Like, I'm not just sitting there and, they may have just written down yes and no. I don't know, but,
right.
But I was just happy that I didn't kind of just let myself be led, like down a okay path. I forced myself to actually answer the questions and push a little more because, when trying to figure out something about somebody with depression or whatever, it's like yes and no just doesn't cut it. It just doesn't. You could ask me a bunch of yes or like, how are you today? Good or bad are the only answers. Which one am I going to answer? Probably bad, because between them, bad fits most days for me better than good does. But in the truth, I'm okay, or I'm, I'll keep bringing the word up, happy-ish. I'm in that middle ground. I'm not one or the other. So anyway, so that's mine for the week.
That's a big win.
Yeah.
And the thing with wins, people, is it's not the outcome of the situation. It doesn't matter if Bryan gets a positive outcome from his review, or his test, and it doesn't matter if I actually get my endorsement or not.
Yeah.
The win is us putting ourselves out there and taking control of a situation and succeeding in the goals that we're setting for ourselves.
Yeah, that we're just not letting this. That, like, I'm not letting my depression dictate things, because I could have just as easily went in there and been like, what's the point? I'm just going to sit here and, go into ER mode, as I like to call it, and just,
exactly,
like, woe is me, I'm not going to, and it's, I don't want to be that. I want to be better. I want to, I want someone to hear me, because for so long I was quiet.
Yep.
And I'm tired of being quiet about how I'm feeling, because this is me and I shouldn't have to be, so, and nor should anybody who's listening,
Absolutely.
If people won't listen to you, find other people, I mean,
exactly.
That's all I can tell you,
And with that, we are listening. So you've got something you want to talk about? You got something you would like to share? Please share it with us. We'd love to hear what you have to say, because it's something that we value. We value you. We value your word. And that being said, to get in contact with me, you can reach me on Twitter I can't even talk. Reach me at Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life, You can contact the show at the Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com. You can contact us through our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And Brian, how can they get in contact with you?
I'm on Twitter at Stunami. And I've also, my other podcast, Salty Language, at saltylanguage.com, or on Twitter at salty_language.
Nice.
And again, we'll say, like you said, y'all matter to us. Thanks for listening to us. And, if you need someone to listen to you, like Jen said, reach out to us. Or, as I'll say every week again, we're not doctors, we're not therapists, we're not licensed in any way. We're just two people dealing, sharing our journeys. If you need, professional help, please seek it. Even if you don't have money, a lot of states offer free mental health care.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that for a long time, but I've found that out recently. So don't let money be the reason you don't go. And again, there's always the suicide hotline number if you need something, or websites out there, 7 Cups of Tea, and there's other ones like that where you can just find people to talk to, or get on, if you're a Reddit person, get on there and r/depression, stuff like that. There's all sorts of places out there, and people are talking about depression and mental health and everything. It's still not as mainstream as it needs to be, but it's getting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One step at a time.
Yep.
We'll all get to the finish line eventually. So enjoy your life, enjoy your moments, enjoy your days. So until next time, we will talk to you later or talk at you later. Yeah, I think that's the way we're going to end. All right. Good night, everybody.